What's up? It's Billy Briz, aka at Getting Bills. Yes, I'm a bold man for wearing this Sixers hood, barring the slate that we're about to get into today. And then I'm joined by my main man, Taylor Stuber. Taylor, how are you feeling today after the opening day?
Hey, I'm feeling good. I mean, it was a very, very successful 2-game slate to start off the season, but now we got a massive 11-game slate. So, there's a lot to break down. I think we're going to go game by game here. But yeah, a lot of things to break down. A lot of these teams actually, I just have zero interest in. And with there being 22 teams on the slate, when you're creating your lineups, I think you need to be playing you need to feel very, very good about all of your plays. They should all be slam dunks because there are so many players, so many price discrepancies that you need to be taking advantage of.
Yeah, yesterday's video really went in depth, but on the shorter slates, you got to talk about like the bench rotational players. But I think this slate's pretty cut and dry. So let's get into the first game. Indianapolis Pacers, they are 2-point underdogs against the Charlotte Hornets. Over under is 223.5. Injury report for the Pacers is looking like LeVert, Warren, and Martin are out, with Jeremy Lamb and Brogdon questionable for Brogdon, really probable, to be honest with you. I think he plays. And then the Hornets, kind of weird to see this team fully healthy. I feel like last year this team was really banged up through majority of the season, but they're getting everybody healthy for this game, and they have a deep rotation. I feel like. What are you looking at in this game, Taylor?
Yeah, so specifically from the Pacers side, I think Domantas Sabonis is one of the best spin ups on the slate. That 9.8K price tag might scare some people away, but it doesn't for me. You go back to last year. At the end of the year, he was in the 10Ks, and you were happy to pay for that price tag. He was a 1.4 fantasy point per minute player last year in competitive games, which if Vegas indicates that this game should be pretty competitive with the Hornets being 2-point favorites. Sabonis should play near 40 minutes in this game. Now, obviously, that is a pretty lofty projection. But when these games are competitive, they run him out there an absolute ton. I don't mind Malcolm Brogdon. And then if Jeremy Lamb and Justin Holiday were to miss this game like they did much of the preseason, we would likely see Chris Duarte, their rookie, start in place of them, and he is only $3,300. So this is the first game of the slate. So if those guys do indeed miss, I don't mind Chris Duarte. And then on the Charlotte Hornets side, like you mentioned, I mean, this team is just very, very deep. They are healthy right now. They have a new addition in Mason Plumlee and Kelly Oubre Jr. I think that the minutes are going to be pretty spread out, and I don't mind LaMelo Ball. I like him. I mean, he's a very good per-minute producer, but they really never stretch his minutes out too far past the 30, 32-minute range. So it's hard for me to really gain any interest on this Charlotte Hornets team.
To be honest with you, this game didn't really pop off to me. I'm glad you started off talking about Domantas Sabonis. That's one of my favorite pay-up options, too. I feel like historically from playing these slates, I feel like we always end up gravitating attacking the Charlotte Hornets front court. And with Plumlee being there, I don't think things are going to change this year. So Domantas Sabonis is in a smash spot. If you're looking for ownership leverage, let's say, it's still early in the day and stuff like that. Let's say Sabonis is by chance chalkiest stud on the slate, then I would be kind of somewhat interested in pivoting to Miles Turner, center only on DraftKings, but I think his FanDuel power forward only positional eligibility kind of opens up things a little bit. He'll contribute in the stocks and blocks category, but let's go over to this Bulls and Pistons game. Bulls are 5-point favorites. They actually open up as 3-point favorites. One in the first legs of my 2-leg parlay today. But injury report, Kobe White is going to be out for the Pelicans. I mean, not the Pelicans, the Pistons. First overall pick, Cade Cunningham, is going to be out for this one. To be honest with you, you touched on it a little bit earlier. Some of these, I feel like younger guys on this slate, especially on DraftKings specifically, really cheap price tags, one of them being Patrick Williams, small forward, power forward, $4,200 on DK tonight and $4,000 on FanDuel tonight. Regardless if he gets to start or not, I still think he sees 25 to 28 minutes due to how thin that front court is for the Bulls. It's really only him and Nikolai Vucevic. I kind of like DeMar DeRozan's price tag a little bit, $7,100 on DK, $7,500 on FanDuel. A little bit more inclined to play DeMar DeRozan over Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine doesn't really contribute in the assist and rebounds categories too much. He's really scoring reliant. And then on the Detroit Pistons side, man, I don't want to play the Pistons, but man, did DraftKings bait you into playing the Pistons today. Jeremy Grant, $6,500 at the power forward position, which is usually a somewhat dead position. Really good price tag on DK tonight, $7,200 on FanDuel tonight. And then also a preseason darling, Kelly Olynyk, who was absolutely smashing in the preseason. It would be interesting to see what they do with Kelly Olynyk. If he does slot in for that Plumlee role, I might Taylor on some crazy stuff have some interest in Kelly Olynyk on an 11-game slate. He looked really good in the preseason. How are you feeling about this Bulls and Pistons game?
Yeah, I mean, just to go over that Kelly Olynyk statement. I mean, yeah, I mean, we know what Kelly Olynyk is. He is a very good per-minute producer when he is out there on the court, but playing behind Isaiah Stewart, I don't think that he plays much of the 4, so he's really just getting those backup minutes at the 5. So, if we were ever given the opportunity of him grabbing the start, yeah, I would love Kelly Olynyk. But from the Bulls side, I mean, I think the Bulls run probably the tightest rotation in the entire NBA with their starting 5. That includes Patrick Williams, and you touched on it earlier, how thin this front court is. I think Patrick Williams is very much so in line to play 32 plus minutes in this game and moving forward. He's only $4,200, has small forward, power forward eligibility on DraftKings. And then I think there's 6-man, especially without Kobe White, out of this game. Alex Caruso is only $3,500. I think he plays mid to high 20s minutes and is the main facilitator when he's out there on the court, especially when he's not playing next to Lonzo Ball. Go back to the Lakers last year. Caruso, whenever he's not playing with just absolute killers like Anthony Davis and LeBron James, he has the capability of running that offense, and we saw that a lot in the preseason. So I don't mind the more expensive guys on the Bulls, but I'm more gravitated towards the guys like Patrick Williams, Alex Caruso. I think there is a couple smash spots for pay up options on the slate, and I'm not really gravitating towards these Bulls guys on the Detroit team. Yeah, I'm not really interested in anyone, to be completely honest. Even without Cade Cunningham, just nobody is drawing interest from me. And like I mentioned earlier, I mean, I think all of your plays need to be absolute slam dunks when you're creating your lineups today with 22 entire teams on the slate.
Yeah, I think last night I ran more of a 5-max type of thing. Tonight, I think I'm just going to play one lineup through across both.
I think we're good.
Yes, so.
Move on to the Boston Celtics versus the New York Knicks. Injury report from the Boston Celtics, Jaylen Brown. I think it looks like he is expected to play in this game. I know he has a Q tag next to him. I'm expecting him to play. If he were out, I think Jason Tatum would get a significant bump. We saw it at the end of the year when there was no Jaylen Brown. Jason Tatum was absolutely dominant in those games. Nerlens Noel on the New York Knicks team is doubtful. I'm not expecting him to play. Mitchell Robinson is coming back from an injury, and we have not heard if he's going to start or to come off the bench. with Taj Gibson at the in the starting lineup. But we saw at the end of the preseason when they were treating these games like dress rehearsals, which is pretty much all of the games because it is Tom Thibodeau and that's what he likes to do. We saw a lot of Julius Randle at the 5 and Obi Toppin at the 4, really experimenting with that small ball lineup for the New York Knicks. And I think that they go back to that a lot because they were very, very dominant at the end of the game. Their offensive rating was through the roof with Obi Toppin and Julius Randle on the court together. I think Julius Randle at 8,800 is entirely too cheap. He led the league in minutes played per game last year by a full minute over the second in the league, James Harden. At 8,800, I think he is one of the best plays on the entire slate. From the Boston Celtics side, I'm not really considering anybody. Al Horford is out in this game, actually, and Robert Williams is going to grab the start. You go back to last year in a very, very large sample size. We see that Robert Williams averaged 1.27 fantasy points per minute in 1,030 minutes. So very, very large sample size. No Al Horford. They are going to need his size against Julius Randle, against Taj Gibson, Mitchell Robinson when he's out there on the court. So I think he plays, around 30 minutes, and he doesn't need the ball in his hands to be dominant, to be fantasy relevant. I think he's definitely in play today. It is a stacked center position, but 5,100 seems entirely too cheap from him. But yeah, really from this game, I'm just focusing on Julius Randle. I think RJ Barrett does carry a cheaper price tag. I think he can definitely pay that off. He was, I believe, 15th in the league in minutes per game last year at 34.9 minutes. He is only 5,700, so I like RJ Barrett, Julius Randle, and then Robert Williams on the Boston Celtics side.
I will definitely agree with you on that one, Taylor. My bad. I don't think my computer is used to it being basketball season again. But I definitely will agree with that one. To be honest with you, I feel like the Knicks, besides Julius Randle, like you said, is kind of thin. I was actually shocked to see Julius Randle's price tag, $8,600, $8,800. When we talked about Giannis yesterday, we said that he was the second highest fantasy scoring player at that position last year, and the number one was being Julius Randle. Julius Randle is going to absolutely smash today, but I don't know if you talked about the Boston Celtics with the Jaylen Brown news. I feel like it's really hard to break down that team without that news on the slate.
Yeah, I'm expecting Jaylen Brown to play in this game. It looks like the only reason he wouldn't play would be because of conditioning. If he were to miss this game, I mean, that would open up a ton. I think Jason Tatum would be one of the best spin-up options. But like I said, I do expect Jaylen Brown to play in this game. But Al Horford is out. So Robert Williams is going to step in and start. Robert Williams might have started anyways. We saw in the preseason that they started next to each other in one of the games. But with Al Horford completely out of the picture, they could play some small ball. They could play Enes Kanter as the backup, but I'm expecting Robert Williams to play, high 20s, maybe low 30s in this game. Averaged 1.27 fantasy points per minute last year, and over 1,000-minute sample size. So just a guy that doesn't need the ball in his hands to accumulate fantasy points because he is so good on the boards, on the blocks, the steals. Can throw around some assists as well. So I like Robert Williams quite a bit at a $5,100 price tag, even with the center position being so stacked today.
Yeah, no, I think you broke that down perfectly. The other game was the Washington Wizards plus 2.5 underdogs going to Toronto, who are 2.5-point favorites. Over under is 218 today. This game was looking like 3 from 3 from each side. I was looking at Bradley Beal, shooting guard on DK, point guard, shooting guard on FanDuel. Without Russell Westbrook being on this team, his usage rating is going to go through the roof. $8,800 on FanDuel compared to his $9,500 price tag on DK. I do like Bradley Beal tonight. Daniel Gafford, your boy, he looks like he's at a good price tag again tonight, $4,900. $5,500. Feels a little bit weird to see Gafford only center eligible, but he actually just got re-signed to the contract extension. So I think this team's kind of invested in the starting Daniel Gafford. I remember one of the preseason slates, it was either him or Montrezl Harrell, and we're in your stream. You're saying, I don't know, man, Gafford's really good, man, and good call on that one. And then your boy Spencer Dinwiddie, $4,900 on DraftKings tonight,
Yeah, that's
which is a
hilarious.
superb value compared to a $6,500 price tag on FanDuel tonight. Dinwiddie is one of the best value plays on DK tonight. And then on Toronto side, there's going to be no Pascal Siakam, and Chris Boucher is actually currently questionable. So Fred VanVleet kind of pops up at $7,500 on DK. Good price tag compared to his $8,800 price tag on FanDuel tonight. Goran Dragic, who's going to be filling in basically the Kyle Lowry role. $5,000, maybe that's too cheap. Maybe that's not too cheap. I don't know, but I'm kind of a Goran Dragic truther. And then this price tag, absolutely. This is the rookie stuff that I was talking to you about. Scotty Barnes, small forward, power forward. Well, I don't think Scotty Barnes is going to be preseason Scotty Barnes now. $3,400 for a guy like Scotty Barnes on DraftKings tonight is going to be highly eye-appealing to, I feel like, the preseason players and stuff like that. $5,200 on FanDuel, and he's only $3,400 tonight on DK. But was there anything that really caught your eye besides just price tags?
Yeah, I mean, I love Bradley Beal today. I mean, we go back to last year with Russell Westbrook, and he has a 40.3% usage rating, 29.3 assist percentage, averaging 1.5 fantasy points per minute. I think Bradley Beal is in a very, very good spot. And then Spencer Dinwiddie, 4.9K. Him and Bradley Beal's minutes are going to be very, very staggered throughout the year whenever they're playing. So they're going to be playing with just them on the court. And so they're going to be the main focal point on offense. And then the center rotation for the Wizards is with no Thomas Bryant. We're going to see Daniel Gafford and Montrezl Harrell split those 48 center minutes. And both of them are very much in play at their current price tags. Go back to last year, Daniel Gafford averaged 1.22 fantasy points per minute. And so if he only plays 24 minutes, just plays half of the 48 center minutes, he more than pays off that price tag. And then on the Toronto side, one of my favorite plays on the slate is going to be OG Anunoby at 6,100. There is no Pascal Siakam. He's not going to be here for a while. Kyle Lowry is no longer with the team. You go back and look at last year's rates. OG Anunoby wasn't all that impressive with those guys off the court. But, it has been said that he has really picked up his offensive game in the offseason, and it looks like he is going to take a step forward in terms of his offense. And if you go back and look at the 4 preseason games that he played this year, he actually led the team in usage in all 4 of those games, or at least amongst the starters. And that was with Fred VanVleet playing next to him. So if he is really going to step up his offensive game at 6,100, I think OG Anunoby is entirely too cheap. I think he is eventually going to be a 7K plus player on DraftKings.
I think my brain has to get used to realizing that OG Anunoby is a real-life NBA scorer. I think I'm just going to have to get used to that. One thing I won't be getting used to that I won't be changing is playing Cleveland Cavaliers on 11-game slates as they take on the Memphis Grizzlies. Memphis Grizzlies are 7.5-point favorites. Very rare you see the Grizzlies as 7.5-point favorites on opening night. But as I digress, over-under here is 216.5. This game is pretty quick. Dylan Brooks is out. Play Dylan Brooks backup. I think it's going to be Desmond Bane tonight, small forward on DK. $3,200 for potentially Desmond Bane tonight, and $4,600 still in play on FanDuel tonight. And then Ja Morant's price tag kind of stood out to me a little bit for GPPs. If you want to go there in GPPs, it's 11-game slate. Maybe some people don't want to play Ja Morant, but this is an absolute smash spot for Ja Morant. More of a FanDuel play at that $8,200 price tag, $1,000 cheaper on FanDuel than DK tonight. But let me know if I missed anything in the Cleveland-Memphis game. I can't. You couldn't pay me to play this game.
Yeah, the Cleveland side is just they are priced up like crazy. Darius Garland 7,600 on DraftKings. I don't understand that at all. I mean, Sexton at 8,300 is somewhat justifiable because he does have the upside, but Garland at 7,600 is crazy. But this team is just so deep. It's hard to really gain interest in anybody on this team. I think Evan Mobley at 4,500, their rookie big man, should play around 30 minutes in this game. He has shown a propensity to be a good per-minute producer, as we saw in the preseason. $4,500, I think that is a fine play. And then on the Memphis Grizzlies side, the only player that I'm really interested in is Jaren Jackson Jr. at 5,900. I think this price tag is insulting to Jaren Jackson. He is finally healthy, has a full preseason under his belt. He is only 22 years old and just inked a 4-year, $105 million contract extension. So that means the Grizzlies believe that he's healthy, that his durability issues are in the past, and this is game 1. So he is as healthy as he is going to be. Gets a good matchup against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Go back to last year with no Jonas Valanciunas, who's obviously not with the team, no Dylan Brooks. He averaged 1.28 fantasy points per minute. Having Steven Adams replace Jonas Valanciunas leaves a lot of shots to go around, and those are going to mostly go to guys like Jaren Jackson and Ja Morant.
I'm looking at you, FanDuel. Jaren Jackson Jr., why isn't he a shooting guard tonight? You did it during the preseason. Why not tonight when it counts? But, yeah, I definitely will agree with you. That's an egregious price tag. I actually forgot Jaren Jackson Jr. They switched his position so much throughout the preseason. I can't even find him like I usually do. But Philadelphia, hometown Sixers right here. Man, hashtag get rid of Ben Simmons. They're 3-point favorites against the Pelicans today, 226 over under. I think this is the game to attack for GPPs tonight. Cover boy of tonight is going to be Tyrese Maxey, $4,000. God damn, is he going to be chalk on tonight's slate? If he's going to get the start without Shake Milton and Ben Simmons, that really soaks up the usage for Tyrese Maxey at that point guard position. And then my boy Seth Curry, $5,800 on DK is kind of less appealing than that $5,200 price tag on FanDuel tonight. One of the sports bets that I did place already today is Seth Curry over 2.5 3-pointers at -115. And then we're Joel Embiid. His usage rating is going to go through the roof. I got on it early, and so should you. Over 38.5 points and rebounds at -110. I think that number's going to go up to 40 by game time. I think Joel Embiid absolutely smashes in this spot. And then on the Pelican side, Brandon Ingram was kind of popping to me. $7,700 if you're in the mid-range section tonight. Maybe you're in the GPPs of the world and you're looking to stack up to the game. I like Brandon Ingram, but I kind of like Neil Alexander-Walker. He's one of my favorite FanDuel value plays of tonight's slate. $6,600 on DK tonight, but on FanDuel, significant price bump down to $5,100. I think he's going to be a 6K player by the time the Pelicans play on another slate and he smashes in this spot tonight. But what are you doing with this game, Taylor? I feel like this is the main game that everyone's really going to attack tonight.
Yeah, I think two of the players you already mentioned, and Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey, are kind of guys you just don't think twice about, and you just go ahead and start. They're obviously going to be without Ben Simmons. He got kicked out of practice last time out, and he is suspended for disciplinary reasons in this one. So we're going to be without Ben Simmons. Shake Milton, Grant Riller are also out in this game. Go back to last year without Ben Simmons on the court. Joel Embiid in 463 minutes, a 43.6% usage rating, 21.5 total rebound percentage, 22.2 assist percentage, while averaging 1.84 fantasy points per minute. Jonas Valanciunas, great offensive player, quite the opposite on defense. I think Joel Embiid will be able to do literally whatever he wants on the court in this game. You need to be playing him. And you mentioned that 38.5 point rebound prop. I think that unless his game absolutely blows out, that he shatters that. The over seems like an absolute lock to me. And then Tyrese Maxey, he should be running point without Shake Milton. It would be a concern if Milton was playing because Milton has passed him on the depth chart over the course of the offseason. But I like Tyrese Maxey a lot with knowing that Shake Milton is not going to be in this game. And if I'm bringing it back with anybody, it's probably going to be Brandon Ingram with no Zion Williamson.
I will agree with you on that one, Taylor. Let's go to this Houston and Minnesota game. Another game that had just really interesting price tags between the websites. Over under here is 227.5. Actually, pretty high over under for these two teams. Minnesota's 5.5 point favorites. The price tag difference between Kevin Porter on DK and FanDuel is just wrong, man. On DK, he's $7,800. On FanDuel, he's $6,100. That's a superb price tag for Kevin Porter Jr., one of my favorite daily fantasy plays every year. And then KJ Martin, I don't know if they thought it was his dad, Kenyon Martin, or something, but his price tag tonight is $6,800 on DK tonight. That isn't a very expensive price tag. But if you go over to FanDuel, $4,700, hey, man, that kind of puts him somewhat in the value play tier. Kind of interested to hear your thoughts on that Rockets starting lineup, because if he's in the starting lineup at $4,700 on FanDuel, he could be potential GPP leverage, kind of like the Bielitsa type of play that you had yesterday. And then on the Timberwolves side, the only person I would play from this team, I know they got rid of some guys, but Anthony Edwards for me, and that's about it. What are you looking at this one, Taylor?
Yeah, I think the Rockets prices are much more enticing on FanDuel. I think DraftKings, they price them up entirely too much. I love playing Kevin Porter Jr. I think he's probably the second best fantasy option on this team. I can't play him on DraftKings at that price. On FanDuel, definitely in play. I think Jalen Green on DraftKings is embarrassingly low at $4,200, has point guard and shooting guard eligibility, should play around 30 minutes, has a good chance of winning Rookie of the Year this year. And he has the greenest of green lights to shoot the ball. He's pretty scoring dependent, so I would kind of reserve him for GPPs. But with him being so cheap, you could probably get away with playing him in cash games. My only fear is, Eric Gordon looming in the background, just waiting to steal some minutes, steal some shots away from these younger guys. But I do believe that the Houston Rockets are committed to giving these young guys extra run. We've seen times in the preseason already that Eric Gordon, Daniel Tice were given rest days so the younger guys could play more. So I don't expect Eric Gordon to play all that much, and that's going to leave a lot of minutes for guys like Jalen Green. If you guys are looking for a bare minimum price guy, Alperen Sengun is probably your guy playing behind Daniel Tice. So whatever minutes Daniel Tice and Christian Wood don't play at the 5, I believe Sengun will end up playing, around 18, 20 minutes in this game, maybe a little bit less, but he is such a high per minute producer. And if this game does end up blowing out, which very well could be a blowout, Sengun, if he gets additional minutes, he is going to absolutely smash, and he is only minimum price on DraftKings.
Yeah, he absolutely smashed during the summer league and the preseason, so I definitely will jump on that bandwagon. You can count me for being in the backseat of that car ride. Orlando's taking on the San Antonio Spurs, 5.5-point favorites. Over under is 212.5. Pretty low over under. Overall, not really too much I was looking at for this game. I think the Spurs will be a team to attack, but usually on a smaller slate with no DeMar DeRozan on that team. I like the usage ratings for some of these players on this team, but ultimately on a 11-game slate, I don't know if I'm going to get to him, but the guys that I put in my player pool was Jalen Suggs. He's listed as questionable, but I think he's going to play. $4,000 for Jalen Suggs tonight. Like you said, these rookies on tonight's slate for DraftKings, they've been kind of messing up. They've been dropping the ball on that these last two slates, but I'm not going to tell anybody. I hope no DraftKings representatives watching this show. Wendell Carter Jr., who just got re-signed to a contract, I think he's going to I guess smash at that price tag. $5,300 on FanDuel is a little bit more appealing. I'm always more inclined to play Carter Jr. on the FanDuel slates because the steals and blocks get a little bit of extra on that, and his price tag's a little bit cheaper. On the Spurs side, Keldon Johnson, if you want to go there, $5,100 on DK is actually a discount compared to his FanDuel price tag at $6,300. And then Dejounte Murray, he's going to be the one leading the usage for this team, $6,800 on DK is, I guess somewhat appealing. He's $1,000 cheaper on DK tonight than he is on FanDuel tonight. And then the other price tag difference was Derek White. He should be the starting shooting guard, shockingly. $5,600 on FanDuel is somewhat of a value, man, compared to a $6,100 price tag on DK tonight. What are you doing with this Orlando Spurs game?
Yeah, I think the Spurs are pretty appropriately priced, which means that they're not that good. They're just like secondary plays for me on this slate because there are so many teams, so many players that if you're appropriately priced, you're probably not making many of my lineups. But I do think that they carry some upside, especially Derek White at those price tags. There is no Patty Mills on this team, no Rudy Gay, no DeMar DeRozan anymore. So a lot of this usage is going to be condensed between DeJounte Murray and Derek White whenever they are out there on the court. And then the Orlando Magic team, if Jalen Suggs does miss this game, Cole Anthony is going to play a lot more minutes, but he's priced up to $6,700. Yeah, it's high. It's way too high. So it's pretty much just an avoid from the Orlando side. Jalen Suggs at 4,000, like you mentioned, is a pretty solid play if he does end up playing. But again, if he's playing mid-20s minutes, I probably don't want to play any guy mid-20s minutes on this slate at any price. So especially at a position so valuable. So I'm probably avoiding this game altogether.
I think that is the best move. What is an 11-game slate without a potential blowout spot here? Oklahoma City is 12-point underdogs against the Utah Jazz in their season opener tonight. Over-under is 220.5. This should be a pretty interesting game because DraftKings is trying to bait you in right back to the well where we left off last year. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, $7,200 on DK tonight, $7,600 on FanDuel tonight. Man, fuck, when you run the numbers, it's just like Shai looks good, but then you have to manually go back in and pull down his numbers so he doesn't come up in all your lineups. And then I think the front court is going to be pretty interesting to see what the Oklahoma City Thunder do. I think there could be potential value in that front court. Darius Bazley, $6,100 on DK. Kind of less inclined to play him at the power forward center position. I don't like that positional eligibility change. I'd be more inclined to play him on FanDuel at small forward, power forward, a lesser position, $5,700, and you get a price tag difference. But Isaiah Roby could be a potential value play tonight, power forward center. He was getting the starts in the preseason, $4,300, $4,600 on FanDuel tonight. The only person that really popped out for the Jazz for me, I manually pulled out Mike Conley. They only put him in there because of his price tag on DK tonight, $6,100 compared to a $7,500 price tag on FanDuel tonight. But I'm going to manually take him out. I'm kind of more inclined to play Jordan Clarkson, especially over there on FanDuel. His DK price tag, $6,100. There's a lot of players in that same exact range, but on FanDuel at $5,200, definitely in play at that price tag. What are you doing with this Oklahoma City and Jazz game? What would an 11-game slate be without a blowout spot?
Yeah, so I mean, with the Oklahoma City side, it's probably just going to be in a void for me. For the most part, I think I fell for the Shai Gilgeous-Alexander trap so many times last year. The numbers are so good, but they are so quick to pull him in blowouts, and this is a 12-point. They are 12-point dogs going on the road against one of the best defensive teams in the league. Probably not the spot to target Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Obviously, he's going to garner all the usage, all the assist percentage on this team. If I were to play anybody in this entire game, it's probably going to be their rookie Josh Giddey at $3,800. He should grab the start. He has been grabbing these starts in the preseason. And, even if this game does blow out, I think he plays through the blowout, and that is going to be without Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and he is at his best per minute fantasy-wise, when he is facilitating, handling the ball, and that is going to be without Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in these blowouts. So if you believe this game blows out, Josh Giddey is a very, very strong play. And then Derek Favors, I think, is worth mentioning just because I think he's in a similar role to what we saw Al Horford last year with this Oklahoma City team, where, he was very, very good on a per minute basis, but with him being an older veteran, they just didn't give him all that many minutes. But if Derek Favors starts, which he should, in their last game where they treated it like a dress rehearsal, Derek Favors was the starter, and he plays 24, 26 minutes, he can get it done in that amount of time. He should be over a fantasy point per minute player. Only $3,600 on DraftKings. I think he is worth mentioning, and he's probably going to be very, very low owned on this slate.
Those are some good stats, Taylor, because you brought me up here by naming my boy Josh Giddey, one of my favorite NBA players. And then we went to Derek Favors, and just all the bad memories came into play. But I'm going to try to keep my recency bias out of it and my personal bias. That's why I did not name Josh Giddey. That is a personal bias person that I actually love watching him play basketball, but couldn't have broke that down any perfect. Let's get into these two last games of the slate, two late night hammers of the slate. Denver Nuggets, 6-point underdogs against the Phoenix Suns. Over unders 223.5. I think the more interesting conversation, let's combine both of these games. Sacramento Kings, 5-point underdogs against the Blazers tonight. Over under 232.5. The Blazers have the highest team total on tonight's slate. And then the Sacramento Kings could be, they're in a pace-up spot, but I don't know if I want to get to the Sacramento Kings. I think I have a personal bias towards Luke Walton, but some of those price tags do stick out to me a lot across the websites. But what are you doing with these late-night hammer spots? We're going to combine both of these games just from the aspect of we're going to wrap the bow on this slate, because I think the Jokic conversation is, how do you rank your studs between Jokic, Embiid, and Sabonis at that power forward center position?
Yeah, and I would also add Julius Randle in that conversation. I think all four of them are I think they're all very, very strong plays. I would probably rank Joel Embiid first, Then Jokic. Jokic without Jamal Murray is just such an elite play. I go back to last year without Jamal Murray on the court. Jokic averaged 1.64 fantasy points per minute. I absolutely love him today. But when it comes to the Sacramento-Portland game, I'm just not – I think they're very, very pricey. It is the highest over-under by a large margin. But I don't think that they are worth their price tags. And I think it is worth noting that Marvin Bagley was told by the coaches that he's not going to be a part of the rotation moving forward. So he is not going to be playing in this game. Do not play Marvin Bagley. That's going to open up some minutes for a guy like Rashawn Holmes and, some of these wings, because Bagley wasn't going to be playing minutes at the 5 anyways. So definitely interesting to see Bagley just not in the rotation at all after getting drafted ahead of Luka Doncic. Pretty funny.
Is that not surprising, just considering how bad of a coach Luke Walton is? But
it just makes all the sense.
I didn't mean to cut you off. I just hate Luke Walton as a fucking coach, man. He sucks. But did you have any interest in Michael Porter Jr. tonight?
Yeah, I think Michael Porter Jr. is probably the only other guy from these last 4 teams that I'd be interested in outside of Nikola Jokic. Go back to last year. He averaged 1.08 fantasy points per minute with Jamal Murray off the court. But with him and Nikola Jokic really being the 2 offensive players on this team, they are going to continue to stagger their minutes like we saw in the preseason. So we're going to see a lot of Michael Porter Jr. without Nikola Jokic on the court. Obviously, Jamal Murray is going to be off the court as well. So Michael Porter Jr., very, very affordable on DraftKings. And I'll be considering Michael Porter Jr. in my lineups tonight.
At the small forward position also was Harrison Barnes. He kind of popped to me on FanDuel. I don't know what his minutes are going to look like, but I might have to manually bump down some minutes for him. I had it for like 33 through 35. But
I think that's pretty safe, especially without Bagley.
Without Bagley, and that price tag on FanDuel, it's $1,000 cheaper on FanDuel than DraftKings tonight at a subpar position. I do like me some Harrison Barnes at $6,200 if you want to get some of the late night hammer action in tonight. Because you know how people always play the slates, get into the strategy things. They think they have a good lineup, but then they don't have action to part of the late night hammer. They feel like they're missing out on something, but they check their phone after every commercial break to see if they're still in first place still. So I don't know how you guys are going to play the slate, but me personally, I'm going to take some of this value early on. I think the value early on in this slate is a lot more secure than it is later on as the night goes on. Maybe I'll leave a couple spots for some studs, switch them out in GPPs, have some Joel Embiid, have some Jokic. But overall, I think it's going to be the early games for me. I think I'm just going to slam that and try to go single entry tonight. Taylor, how are you playing tonight's slate?
Yeah, that's pretty much how I'm going to go. The late games are kind of an avoid for me outside of Jokic. If I can fit in Jokic and Embiid, I'll do so. I'm going to get some exposure to Michael Porter Jr., but I'm kind of avoiding that. Those late games tonight altogether, because I think a lot of people are going to gravitate towards the highest over under on the slate with the Portland Kings game later. And I just think they're too expensive for even in the highest over under.
I think if it was later in the season in like March or something like that, I'll be more inclined to play the night games and then kind of bank on news hitting the slate later on in the night. But we already basically got the news, and the news that we're looking for are all coming from the 7 o'clock games. So make sure you follow Taylor Stuber over on all social media platforms so you're in there an hour before lock. Because if you're in there an hour before lock yesterday, the Bruce Brown news kind of threw everybody off, and you full faded Bruce Brown, which was the ultimate right move because Patty Mills was the only way you won a shitload of money and took down a GPP last night. So that was a great late minute pivot. But if you want to get those late minute pivots, you got to follow Taylor Stuber over on all social media platforms, and you can follow me over on Twitter at Getting Bills. Taylor, any wrapping words for today's slate?
Yeah, if you guys want the most up-to-date information, you want to be successful in NBA DFS, you need to have the most up-to-date information. And I break down that every single day, an hour before lock on my own personal YouTube channel. That is linked down below. Make sure to go subscribe over there. I will have another video. As you're watching this, there's probably going to be a video up on my channel that you guys can watch, but it is very, very important to get into that live stream an hour before lock. because yeah, like Billy just mentioned, dude, I got off of Bruce Brown and I pivoted almost exclusively to Nemanja Bjelica. So that was like an almost 40-point swing for me right there. And we won a ton of money last night just by doing that solely.
Yeah, I think these morning conversations really lay down the basis of the slate. So it's always nice to have these morning conversations. Make sure you hit the like button on your way out on Pub Sports Radio. We have a lot of things going on right now with basketball season being around the corner. We have Monday, Wednesday, Friday with Maxwell Smart going over the top 25 countdown for this upcoming NCAA basketball season. And then we have the daily NBA Pub Hub on Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. East, I believe. That's why you got to hit the bell notification so you get notified for all of our live videos. You'll see my pretty face on there on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and you'll probably start seeing Taylor's pretty face on there too. That's probably the first time I ever called a man pretty. So pause, take that back, and act like I never said it. But make sure you hit the bell notification and the like button on your way out. We be pubbing.